Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Skelly, and this is the Global Conversation. And I have a great deal of information for you. We missed last week because of a conference I was at, but I hope this will bring you up to date. I have to say that I'm impressed with the amount of work people have been putting into the study circles. Please carry on. We need you to keep moving on this. It's only 2 more weeks or so before the final project is due, so please don't let it lag. Hang in there and go to work. Number of things to tell you about this week, and I'm sorry. I have some good news and a lot of bad news. There. One of the things that's very interesting to me is the way in which you can begin to see at the global level a lot of people becoming overtly engaged in facing into climate change and the other environmental problems that we're facing. Um, some of that is countered, unfortunately, by those who are not facing into it and who are denying it even more vigorously. So I'm going to give you some of the bad news. Some of it is structural, and I will try to bring this to your attention. One of the places that I recommend highly for you, especially if you're interested in China, which you should be given the impact China is having in the world. There's an article in the current issue of, it's the 5th of April, an article that says Beijing won't meet the World Health Organization air pollution standards until 2030. Until the 2030s. And you know that we've been talking about this issue. We know that essentially China has been externalizing the costs of its economic industrialization, if you will, and they've been externalizing the costs to the air and thus to people's lungs. So this is a pretty serious matter. They're calling it an air apocalypse, like a apocalypse, but an air apocalypse. But it doesn't. I mean, the article that I'm looking at is on China Dialogue, and I'll send you the link to this. Suggests that unless they cut back on coal consumption, right? Coal is the big problem. The energy that China is using to power their industrial takeoff is largely coal. And coal is one of the worst in terms of greenhouse gases, to say nothing of air pollution. So you might want to take a look at that. As I said, I'll send you the link. But it is, it's really bad in China, and I would worry myself if I went to China about breathing the air, certainly in Beijing. And I was in Beijing probably 25 years ago, 20 plus years ago anyhow, and then everybody was using bicycles. And now, just like many other countries that have got big consumer economies, they're using cars. And that and the coal-fired energy plants are quite problematic. So you might want to take a look at that. A couple of other things. The strange weather that we've been having, the climate disruption, as President Obama's science advisor, John Holdren, would call it. I think maybe some of you have seen the presentation that we have on the website by John Holdren. Very smart guy. But the climate disruption is affecting all kinds of things. In Britain, for example, they've had very, very late cold days and snowfall, and it's affecting sheep. Lambs are dying out in the countryside in the hundreds and thousands. So, these kinds of things are likely to happen more and more. There's a new study out that shows that so for some people, this might really motivate them. They say Bordeaux wines may be on their last legs because of climate change. they expect in Bordeaux a 2/3 fall in the production of wine. This is the premier red wine in the world, and it's probably going to be in deep trouble. Um, um, they also forecast a sharp decline in Tuscany in Italy. Those of you who might like Chianti, if you have such things, and the Napa Valley in California, all affected by climate change. So, how this plays out, I've been talking with colleagues here, and it's going to be more and more problematic. Another report out, a couple of things, very interesting things coming out of Ireland, actually, this week. A place that, as some of you know, I'm associated with, shall we say, as a citizen of that country. Ireland's having a couple of big conferences on food, hunger, etc. And there's a report out that Africa is going to be the worst hit by climate change in terms of crop destruction. They expect by 2015 the crop yields across sub-Saharan Africa to decline by between 5 and 22%. Egypt is predicted to lose 15%, right? So you're going to see changes. Some of it will be for the good in certain parts, but overall it's not looking that great. I have an infographic that I will send you along with the announcement for this mini lecture. Some of the other things that are happening, which I find disturbing, I have to say, are the plans in Britain to drop any references to climate change. I think there's one minor reference from the curriculum for children under 14 years of age. So, what are they thinking about? Huh? And in Britain, they've decided, they're hosting the G8 conference in June. And this is the big rich countries, right? And Britain is hosting it. And guess what they've taken off the agenda? Climate change. You don't know what they're thinking sometimes, I have to say. And then, the worst, there are idiots out there. One of them is a member of the United States Congress named Joe Barton. Let me tell you what Joe Barton said. It's almost comical if it wasn't so sad. He's making an article of faith to deny the existence of the human component to climate change. This past week, he cemented that reputation by citing the Old Testament to refute scientific evidence of man-made global warming, drawing on the story of Noah's Ark. Barton said, "I would point out that if you are a believer in the Bible, one would have to say the Great Flood was an example of climate change. That certainly wasn't because mankind had overdeveloped hydrocarbon energy." Well, at the same time, he's reiterating his support for the Keystone XL pipeline, which will take the product of the tar sands ecocide in Canada to the United States. And the Congress is also at work protecting Monsanto and genetically modified foods. Over the years, Monsanto has, through U.S. embassies, through the Food and Drug Administration, various other ways, has, been pushing genetically modified foods about which they have patents, which mean that they're going to get very rich if they can dominate the markets. But people even close to this issue were absolutely surprised in that President Obama last week signed off on what has widely become known as the Monsanto Protection Act. The key phrases are a mouthful of mumbo-jumbo, but essentially Monsanto will not be able to be challenged even by the U.S. government with regard to its policies around genetically modified food. You know, you gotta worry. You gotta worry, guys. And you know, the climate deniers are out there being funded. Their groups are putting out, you know, lots of propaganda about the fact that climate change really isn't happening. And, you know, you find the well-known Donors Trust has distributed $118 million to 100 plus think tanks or action groups, all designed to deny the existence of a human factor in climate change. I mean, you know, do we need this? Probably not. On the positive side, you'll see somebody named Jeremy Grantham, who's an environmental philanthropist. And this is a kind of interesting story. I'll be sure to send this on to you. Grantham is a 74-year-old hedge fund manager. He has made hundreds of millions of dollars. And he recently was arrested in Washington, D.C., protesting the Keystone XL pipeline. What he said was, what we're trying to do is buy time. Buy time for the world to wake up to climate change. He said he was committed to getting arrested, but some things got in the way of that. One of the things that he says that I find very, very interesting is he talks about the fact that there are a lot of people who are very astute in the world of finance and predicting which way the financial markets are going to go, etc., factoring in all these different aspects and, you know, making decisions that bring them lots of money, right? And what he's concerned about is that they don't, the same people with regard to climate are making a different analysis, and he finds it very, very difficult. Let me read you this. I find the parallels between how some investors refuse to recognize trends and our reaction to some of our environmental challenges very powerful. There is an unwillingness to process unpleasant data. In a bull market, you want to believe good news. You don't want to hear that the market is going to go off a cliff. He finds climate skeptics, he said, led by a little army of non-scientific, persuasive loony lords, part of the problem. They have profound beliefs as opposed to knowledge that they are willing to protect by all manner of psychological tricks. So you have people who are very smart, great analysts and hedge fund managers who on paper know that their argument is wrong, but who promote it fiercely because they are libertarians. Anyone, and here Grantham says again, anyone with a brain knows that climate change needs governmental leadership, and they can smell this is bad news for their philosophy. They are using incredible ingenuity to steer their way around facts they do not choose to accept. So he's been begun funding out of the Grantham Foundation for the Production of the Environment various initiatives to support education about climate change and the destruction of the environment. The other very positive thing, and you know, I would again point you, this is why I say there are tensions, and you see some areas where people are doing very, very good things. One of them is the former President of Ireland, Mary Robinson. And if you don't know about Mary Robinson, I recommend you read what you can. She was a visitor here at Juniata College some years ago and was given an honorary doctorate for her work at that time as the head of the Human Rights Committee of the United Nations. Her focus now is on climate justice and one of the things I can send along to you is one of the focus areas of her foundation, which is on women's leadership on gender and climate change, because women are set to suffer, as you might expect, more from climate change than men. And she's holding a big meeting this week in Dublin. And I think you might want to take a look at that when I send you the link to her foundation. Finally, I'll send along, as I said, the information on the infogram that shows you where it's likely that we'll have more problems with food production because of climate change. But I'll also send you something from the International Food Policy Research Institute, based in Washington, D.C., on the Global Hunger Index. And there are some countries that are in very bad shape now. Chad in Central Africa probably being the worst. At any rate, it's a lot of information. I'm sorry it's not more positive, but it means, in the end, that you too have to get involved. Now, I hope this course provides you with some foundation for that, but it's very, very important to challenge the way we've been living on this planet and say, we've got to change this. Keep up the good work with your study circles. I hope it all goes well, and I'll look forward to talking with you again. If you do have any problems, please be in touch with Sadie or with me. Thanks very much.